Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Children's Worship. We're so glad that you're here and that you are tuning in to learn a little bit more about God's stories. I'm going to get started right away. We're going to turn our candles on, so if you have yours, go and find it and turn it on. This is a reminder of two things. God is always with us, and God calls us to be the light of the world. In our story that we did last week, we learned about a family, Abram and Sarai, and they learned to always trust in God. Now, the story this week continues, so I'm going to get right into it, and we can listen to the rest of the story. Abram and Sarai left their home and friends in Haran, just as God told them to do. As they traveled to a new home, they remembered God's promise. I will be with you, and I will bless you. When they came to a new land, Canaan, God made another promise to Abram. God told Abram he would have more children than the grains of sand at the edge of the sea. Abram and Sarai trusted God. God had led them safely to a new land, and surely God would give them children, many children, just as God had promised. Time passed, but they had no children. More than anything, Abram and Sarai wanted children, the children God had promised them. But they were very old, too old. They had given up hoping. One day, God gave new names to Abram and Sarai. God called them Abraham and Sarah. Later, the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, where Abraham was sitting outside his tent. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. He invited them to come in and rest from their journey. Abraham prepared a feast for the 3 visitors. One of the visitors said to Abraham, "Next year at this time, Sarah will have a baby boy." Sarah was secretly listening. When she heard this, she laughed to herself. She thought it was impossible. They were too old to be parents. The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return next year, and Sarah will have a son." A year passed. Just as God promised, Sarah had a baby boy. They named him Isaac, which means laughter. So in our story today, we learn a few things and see God's promise in a different way. So God had promised children to Abraham and Sarah. They were so old and it hadn't happened. All those years of waiting and wanting babies and it not happening. And then suddenly it happens when they don't think that it can. So God always keeps his promises. It may not be in our time. It may not be when we think that they should happen, but he is faithful and true to what he promises. And so they finally have a baby boy, and they name him Isaac. In future weeks, we're going to learn all about the life of Isaac and the stories that he has from his children, which are really some pretty exciting stories. So we're going to close with the Lord's Prayer. Oh, and before I forget, the things that you want to grab out of your goodie bag today are some coloring pages. This one says, God keeps his promises, because it's so true and it's such a good reminder. And sometimes when we're struggling with something, no matter what it is, it could be a big something or a little something, we have to always remember to trust in God and that he is there for us and he loves us no matter what. And I sent home a little bulletin. It asks you to draw a present for the baby boy, so for baby Isaac, and it gives you a few little things that you can review with a grown-up or an older sibling that knows how to read. If you don't know how to read, some things about our story and about Abraham and Sarah. Now I will close us in prayer. Dear Jesus, thank you for being with us for another week and for us learning about your stories, God's stories in the Bible. Help us to always remember to know that God keeps his promises to us. Help us to be patient and know that it is going to be all right. And now we'll close with the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.